I just bought a variety pack of gels. I'm going to go through them all, test them all out, give my honest feedback, and let you know which ones I think's the best so you can make a better informed decision. So let's get to it and start running. All right, I have gone through the ringer here. I tested out all the different running gels, and I wanted to be as consistent as possible with testing them out. So I did them all over runs, and then at the same time, I tried to pick up my pace a little bit just to see how hard or easy it was while I'm running at a decent effort. And that's one of the factors that I'm going to be considering throughout this process with all these different running gels. The first one is taste. The second one is usability, so how hard it is to rip open, consume. And the third one is how well does it sit in my stomach. And then at the end, I'll go over my actual overall favorite out of all of these. And then going off that point, I didn't anticipate any of them sitting poorly in my stomach or causing any issues just because I feel like I have a fairly strong stomach. And then at the same time, when I was training for my marathon, I would never have any intra supplements, even water. I would run for 2 to 3 hours. There was only one time that I actually needed something, but for the most part, I never really took any supplements during my training. So I didn't anticipate taking a gel or a supplement during, and then all of a sudden I'm gonna have so much more energy and I'm gonna be able to crush this out. And it might just be the effort level, because maybe if I'm given a stronger, harder effort over 2 to 3 hours compared to maybe 2 hours of an easy run, it's gonna be a little bit different. So those are a few factors that I was going to be considering and I thought before going into this. But with that being said, let's jump in and go over all of these gels. And this is in no particular order. This is just the order that I consume them. All right, starting off, first one that I had was the Edge Energy Gel. And I'm not going to lie, this was kind of doomed from the start. Not a fan of the packaging. It's pretty thick and pretty wide. So I wear a running belt. And there's a little bit difference. If I was doing an Ironman, I would have the tri-suit and they got the packages in the back, the 3 pockets. But if I'm doing a marathon, I got my running belt, and to stick this in the running belt was a little bit challenging. And for only having 60 calories in it, actually it's 70 calories, it's not the best because there's other options that are a lot smaller and a lot easier to put into the running belt. So this was kind of doomed from the start. Going off of that, the flavor is strawberry banana, and when I had it, it kind of shocked me. I'm not saying the flavor was bad. I'm just saying strawberry banana is a bad depiction of it. If it said sour strawberry banana, it would be a little bit better, because when I tasted it, it was fairly sour, and I wasn't expecting that. The hole at the top is really small, so it was hard to get the actual gel out. And before I took any of these supplements, the only one that I had before was Maurten. And if you've had Maurten, it's really a gel consistency. So once I started getting into these, they're all a lot more liquidy than I expected. And I thought they were just all gonna be like gel, like Maurten. But so this was a little bit liquidy. And the best way to describe it, it was like crystallized. There's like little textures. It seems like it's blended up fruit is kind of how the best way I could describe it. It's kind of crystallized, but the flavor was good. It's just the strawberry banana, I wouldn't say, it's a little bit sour. So that's one thing that I considered there. And then at the same time, it was really tough to finish the whole package. I think it took me about 2 to 3 minutes to actually finish the whole package, just because it's liquidized. And you'll notice there's a very common theme with the more liquid gels. It's harder to get all of it out, and especially having the small tube at the top, it made it even that much harder. So with the wide packaging right here, whenever I'm like consuming it, this part is hitting the side of my lips, and that really irritated it, and I wasn't a big fan of that. And other than that, it wasn't bad. It did sit well, but it's just the packaging, not a fan of, and how big it is, and only for 70 calories, not that great. So Edge was kind of doomed from the start with the whole packaging, and when I was trying to fit in my belt, I'm like, oh, this is not a good way to start. So that's Edge. Taste was good, but it needs to adjust the actual title of it. Sat well, and the usability of it was a little bit tough just because it's liquid and it's a really small hole at the top here. Next up, I'm going to do 2 at once because they're basically the same thing. I did Maurten Gel 100, and then there's also the Maurten Gel 100 Caf. A lot of it's the exact same. The only difference will be the taste. So the ripability is really easy, and that's easy to stuff in your pocket, easy to stuff in the belt. And then at the same time, there's 100 calories in this compared to the 70 calories in the Edge. The ingredients are really good. Taste, I find, is really good as well. And then it's a gel consistency, which in my opinion, I find gel a lot easier to consume, because when you have the liquidy types of gels, it falls down. So each time you have to keep pushing it back up, and then you have to take it, and then you got to push it back up, take some more. Whereas with the gel, when you push it up, it ends up staying up at the top. So I find it a lot easier to consume the gel. And then when I was taking this during my run, this was probably the fastest one that I was able to eat and consume, because I did it 1, 2, 3. I got 3 pushes and I was able to consume this whole thing. So it's just really quick and easy to be able to get this done. The only difference with the Caf is, I would say, the taste. So if you've ever had, say, caffeine pills, there's a little bit of a bitter taste to it. So it kind of drowns the actual Maurten natural taste to it out, and it's just more of like a little bit of a bitter taste to it. I don't think it's anything overpowering. It's very neutral type of flavor where you don't get much of a flavor, you just get a little bit of bitter. So other than that, I was really a big fan of the Maurten Gel Caf 100 and more of a fan of the Gel 100 because you get the taste and the flavor a little bit more than the actual caffeinated one. All right, next up, I'm going to do another 2-for-1. This is the Sis. We got lemon and lime flavor, and this one's unflavored. Unflavored kind of reminded me of the white Freezies, where it's kind of a fruity taste to it. And then lemon and lime was an all right taste to it. I think unflavored I preferred, but they were both pretty good. With the rip in the top, it's another small hole, but this is when I started to realize that the gels weren't actually gels and it's a lot of liquid. So this is when I think it's just harder to consume, because when you push it up and you take some, and then it just starts to fall back down because it's liquidy. So then you got to constantly do this. But these have 160 calories in it, so a little bit more calorie dense than the Maurtens, which is nice, easily able to fit into your belt pocket or your belt, your tri-suit pockets, whatever it might be. And I would say that it sat pretty well. And I think the one thing about the liquids is that it's able to go down a lot easier. Maybe not a lot easier, but it's able to go down quite a bit easier than compared to Maurten, just because it's more of a thick consistency, whereas this, it's kind of just, you know, you're drinking water. So it goes down quite a bit easier. But honestly, taste was pretty good. The consumability was pretty good as well. And then at the same time, it's got 160 calories. The only issue with the liquid ones, you'll see a very consistent theme here, is that it takes longer to consume it all because you're constantly trying to push it up to get it all. So if you're going from the full bag to the empty bag, it's going to take a lot longer. But if you're willing to let a little bit not be consumed and just leave a little bit in the package and you're just kind of getting the bulk majority of it, this might be a little bit quicker and easier compared to Maurten. But if you're going for 100% complete Maurten, you're going to be able to get all of it out a lot faster. All right, next up we got Victus. I was really looking forward to this one because I like the minimal aspect of the branding, and it looks pretty sleek, pretty clean. And I would say the ripoff was a little bit tough. The taste, there wasn't much taste to it. This is lemon flavored. And when I was running, so this is another liquidy one, and when I was filming, I guess I got kind of lucky when I was filming it. It just caught like a little glimpse of it, and you could just see a bunch of it squirting out. And I think that just goes back to the liquid consistency of it. I'm not as big a fan of the liquidy gels. And the thing with the Sis, the hole in the package is a lot smaller, so having a smaller hole makes it a little bit better for the liquid ones, whereas with this one, the hole's a little bit bigger. And as you can see, the gel comes squirting out because of the liquid consistency. But it sat all right. I don't know if I had cramps before, but about 30 minutes later after consuming it, I got a little bit of cramps, but they didn't last too long. And I think it just goes back to the liquid consistency of it, it takes a lot longer to be able to get through the whole package because it's constantly going down. I think this was a little bit more liquidy than some of the other ones. This also has 180 calories, so it's a bit more calorie dense than the typical ones outside of Sis. Sis has 160, so there's a lot more calories in it. Liquid consistency helps go down a little bit easier, but the ripping was a little bit tough. And then at the same time, when it's liquid, it just always goes back down to the bottom, which makes it a lot harder to get all of it out compared to, say, Maurten. I'm gonna probably use that a lot as the example, but overall it wasn't too bad. I was a little underwhelmed with it because I really liked the branding of it, and I had high hopes for it. But other than that, it wasn't too bad, but it wasn't great. Next up here, we got Goo. I was looking forward to tasting this one because I hear a lot of people talking about this. This is one that you see a lot, and I think the reason is because of the flavor. So I would say this one had the strongest and the most flavor. I'm not saying it was bad. It was honestly a really good flavor, but it does have a really strong flavor to it. So I'm assuming that's why a lot of people do like it. It was easily ripped off. And I think the name Goo is a really good name because this is the only other one that has like the gel consistency. And when you're tasting it and trying to consume it, it's like really gooey and I would say sticky in like your mouth. So if you say try and chew it, it's like sticking together. So this one is probably the hardest one to actually digest and consume. And I think you don't need water, but water would be beneficial to help it digest. It felt like it kind of got stuck in my system. And it would be a lot easier if I did have water to help it go down. But other than that, I think it's a pretty good one. Taste is really good. The only thing is it's going to be the hardest to actually consume. And like with the sticky consistency, it's not as easy as, say, Maurten to get out. I would say Maurten's really slimy, whereas this is like that sticky consistency. So to be able to get all of it out did take a little bit of extra effort. But this one definitely has the best flavor and most taste to it. Next up, we have Enervit. This one wasn't too bad, easily rippable. I would say it's another liquidy consistency. The only issue with this is the hole is really small, and to be able to get everything out, you have to really suck hard on it. And I did it during an easy segment, and then it turned into a hard segment. When I was running, it just starts beeping and my watch goes and it's like, oh shoot, I gotta pick up the pace here. And because of how hard you have to suck to be able to get all of the stuff out, it made that segment a lot harder because you're really sucking hard to try and get everything out, and then you're out of breath after it. So it took me a long time to be able to get all of this down. So if you're running at a hard pace, this one's not going to be very ideal because it was tough to get it actually out because of how small the hole is up here. And I would say the taste is pretty good. It's citrus, natural flavored. I would say it tastes like that. So the flavor is good there, and it did sit well. I would just say the only issue with it is how small the hole is, liquidy texture, and it takes a lot of like, for me, I don't know if there's another way you can do it, but for me, I found you have to like suck on it and then it'll come out easier or come out more. But other than that, it was a little bit tough to consume while I was running. And it has 160 calories, which is nice. I know some are like 100. And the more I do these, there's a couple 160s, 180s. So 160 calories is nice, but it's just with the small hole, liquid texture, it was a little bit tough to actually get it all out. Second last one here is NeverSecond. This one is espresso natural flavored. Tastes a lot like espresso. It has a really strong aftertaste to it, and it also has 75 milligrams of caffeine in it. If you don't like espresso, I wouldn't recommend it because it tastes like espresso and it has a pretty strong aftertaste to it. The rip was a little bit hard. I don't know if you can see it. There's a plastic like inner tube to it, so it makes it a little bit harder to actually rip. It's a liquidy texture, and it stayed down fine. It's same thing with all the other liquid ones. Takes a while to be able to get all of it out there. And then what I would also say is, I don't know if it's the caffeine or the coffee, but one time when I went to Mexico, a little story here, I was drinking espresso martinis and my throat started hurting, and someone ended up telling me that Mexico coffee is a little bit stronger. And after the run, I was having a little bit of soreness in my throat, and I'm not sure if it's because of this, but it maybe could have been. It did sit fine, but that was just one thing that happened. I don't know if it's because of the espresso flavor or the caffeine, whatever it might be, but I was noticing a little bit of irritation in my throat after the run and after consuming this. But other than that, liquidy texture, a little bit tough to rip, did taste exactly like it says, and it was a little bit of a strong aftertaste. I don't know if they have other flavors and what those other flavors would taste like, but for this one, it has a pretty strong aftertaste of coffee, espresso, whatever you might want to call it. But yeah, that's NeverSecond. And finally, the last one up here, we have Rawvelo, if that's how you pronounce it. I'm not really sure. This one was the hardest one to rip open. It's the same thing with the NeverSecond. It's like the plastic inner tube. When you rip it, it's like inside. It just does not make it easy to rip. I don't know, you can kind of see it. And there's like a plastic inner tube to it. But that was the hardest one to actually rip. The flavor is blood orange. I thought it was all right. Tasted kind of like that. Tasted like oranges, I guess you could say. And it's a liquidy flavor or liquidy gel to it as well. So same thing with all the other liquid ones. A lot harder to actually get the whole thing out, and you got to constantly squeeze and push it up. It did sit fine, and I would say it's easy to consume. I'd say that's the best benefit of these liquid ones is they go down easily. They are kind of like water where it's just like in and out, and it just goes straight down. And like the goo or the Maurten, you actually have to maybe chew it. I wouldn't say you have to chew it, but you have to maybe mush it around a little bit in your mouth just to be able to get it down a little bit easier. So that's the one benefit that the liquid ones have. But I think the amount of effort that it takes to actually get all the liquid out doesn't outweigh or outweighs the actual ease of actually consuming it. So that's Rawvelo. It has 80 calories, which is nice, and it sat well. So other than that, it wasn't too bad, but it was definitely the hardest one to rip with the plastic inner line tubing. That's all the gels, and moving on to my actual overall favorite. I don't know if you could tell throughout the video, constantly comparing it, but my overall favorite is the Maurten Gel. Just everything about it. The taste, honestly, I really like the taste. It's not overpowering. It tastes good in my opinion. And the rippability, it's easily ripped. And then the hole that it comes with, when you do rip it, it's big enough and it's like a gel consistency. So you push up once, take some, push up twice. You could probably finish it in 2 pushes. But for me, I finished it in 3. And you finished it within, say, 5 seconds. Whereas the other ones, you're going for 30 seconds, a minute. There was a couple that I was trying to consume over a couple minutes. So just how easy it is to consume this, how easy it is to rip it. I love the taste, and just being able to package it in either your waist belt or maybe your triathlon back pockets, maybe it's even your short pockets, whatever it might be. I just think overall, Maurten Gel 100 is my actual favorite out of all of these gels and what I would recommend. Well, that's all the gels that I have here to try out. I hope this does help you make a better decision for the gel that you're going to be choosing, or maybe you're looking to switch to a different gel. I know that some people prefer the goo, some people might prefer the more liquid types of gels. It's all personal preference, and for me, under my specific circumstances and that criteria, that's just what I think is the best and what I think will work the best. So I hope you do find some value out of this. You did get some new insights to the specific gels, and otherwise, thanks for watching, and we'll catch you in the next one.